Welcome to Talking TSIA2, the math test. My name is Mr. Taylor, and these videos have been tailor-made just for you. I am so glad that you've decided to join us. Let's get started.
Today what we want to talk about is basically the structure of the TSIA2 Math test, and then to look at the calculator options that they give you online. So this is actually called the Mathematics College Readiness Classification Test. Name doesn't really matter. Okay? What it is though, it's 20 questions. And basically it's going to be from 4 main categories. You're going to see 4 to 6 questions from what they call quantitative reasoning, 4 to 6 questions from what they call algebraic reasoning, 4 to 6 questions about geometric and spatial reasoning, and then another 4 to 6 questions about probabilistic and statistical reasoning. Now, if you're anything like me, I don't know what the heck they're even talking about. So let's kind of break this down into terms that I kind of understand, because that made no sense. Quantitative reasoning, what they're talking about when you see questions that deal with quantitative reasoning, they're talking about calculating ratios. There are 3 blue squares to 1 yellow square. Okay, so we can write a ratio 3 to 1. Maybe they're talking about proportions. Proportions just mean we have equal fractions. Maybe we're comparing the number of boys to the number of girls in a classroom. Okay? The other thing you're going to see is percentages. Remember, percentages, by definition, percentage, C-E-N-T, y'all, that's a cent. There's 100 cents in a dollar. So a percentage is something out of 100%. Okay? Anything out of 100, that's going to be a percent. The other kind of question you might see deals with linear expressions or linear equations. Kind of like y equals mx plus b, the equation of a line. Algebraic reasoning. This is all about solving equations. They might be linear equations. They might be exponential equations. They might be rational expressions. They might even be radical equations. And you also could see quadratic equations. Any of these type of things they consider algebraic reasoning because we are trying to solve an equation. Geometric and spatial reasoning is all about knowing how to apply formulas. Most of the time they will give us our formulas like this. Area of a rectangle is base times the height. Or the volume of a cylinder is pi times r squared h. You know what? But this also is going to involve your right triangle trigonometry. Not just a squared plus b squared equals c squared, Pythagorean's theorem, but you're also going to have to remember things like, how do I find sine and cosine and tangent? Maybe if you've already had geometry or been through pre-cal, you might remember the term SOHCAHTOA. Those are things that we think about when we talk about geometric and spatial reasoning. We're going to have a video later on that's going to go over this in a little more detail. The last category you might see is probabilistic and statistical reasoning. Probability of an event occurring, y'all, this means the number of ways that event can occur over the total number of outcomes. A very simple example of that is flipping a coin. A coin has 2 sides. What is the probability that when you flip a coin, it lands on heads? Well, there's only one side that's a head, if it's a legal coin, and there's 2 total outcomes. So the probability of flipping a coin and it landing on heads is 1 out of 2. The other thing you might see in this is when they talk about mean, median, mode, and range. Mean questions is just an average question. And y'all, we see a lot of these on the TSIA2. You also need to remember median is like in the middle and mode shows up the most often, and range is just the distance between the 2 numbers. Okay? But most often we're going to see something that deals with an average or a mean. So why are we talking about all these parts of the test? Because it's important that you know what the test is structured like so that you can set a realistic goal, so that you can aim for a target score. That's what we're trying to do here. We want to make sure we set a goal that we can reach. Remember guys, a goal without a plan is just a wish. And I don't want to wish that you pass. I want you to set a goal and I want you to reach that score. So what score are we shooting for? What is our target score? Yeah, 950. That is the score we need to make on the TSIA2, the first 20 questions, to be considered college and career ready. Now, if we don't meet the college readiness benchmark score of this 950, we're going to have to take a multiple choice diagnostics test. This test consists of 48 questions. We just took 20, now we have to take another 48. Basically, it's 12 more questions from each of those content categories that we just talked about. Okay, take your time though. Remember, it's an untimed test. And the reason this diagnostic test can be so helpful, the results here will let you know where we're strong and where we're weak. What do we need to work on so that we can reach our goal? Okay, let's talk a little bit about our calculators now. Y'all, handheld calculators of any type, including your phone, are not permitted for use with the online TSIA2 math test. Some, but not all of these math questions contain one or more pop-up calculators for use in solving the problem that was asked. If a question allows you to use a calculator on that part of the test, you'll see a little icon show up in the top right corner. It's usually going to be next to the number of the question, where you see your highlighter and some of the other aids that are available to you. You can see what I've highlighted. That shows up whenever we can use a calculator. So what are the types of calculators that might show up on the test? You have your basic four-function calculator. If you press the button, this one will show up more often than not. Sometimes, though, they will give you a square root function calculator. And you can see the only difference between this and the first calculator is they gave you a square root button. And every now and then, not very often, they let you use a TI-84 graphing calculator. So when you'll hit the graphing button icon, if a calculator shows up, it will be the basic calculator. Otherwise, they'll give you a menu, and it's going to say, do you want to use the basic, do you want to use the square root, or do you want to use the graphing calculator? And you could pick to use any of the three types on those questions. Like I said, though, that doesn't show up very often. Okay, let's talk about a couple of hints here for the calculators. Always pick up your pencil before you pick up the calculator. Okay, jot ideas down first. Work the common steps. Only pick up the calculator when you need it. Slow down. The calculator is always right. So make sure you are typing in the correct information. Write it down first. Jot down your plan before you go to the calculator. In other words, I'm trying to tell you guys, always pick up that pencil first. It's so much more important than the calculator. Okay? Be very careful. Remember, the calculator is just a tool that you can use. Think through everything first, and you guys are going to do great.